Hey everyone, welcome back to the Caderna podcast. I'm your host, Brian Caderna. So today we got a great episode on deck for you with a really interesting guest in Scott Harkey. If you're not familiar with Scott, let me give you a quick background. He's the president of OH Partners, one of the largest and most decorated advertising agencies in the Southwest. His clientele includes such icons as Walt Disney, National Geographic, AirBnB, and the NBA, just to name a few. OH Partners has consistently been ranked one of Inc. 500's and Adweek's fastest growing private companies. Scott has been named on the Arizona Republic's 35 Under 35 Entrepreneurs list, the Phoenix Business Journal's 40 Under 40 list, and was voted by his peers as Ad Person of the Year in 2018. In our conversation, we cover everything from how to build a business from the ground up, like Scott's done, and also a lot about the current climate for advertising and marketing and how to really reach your customers and your consumers and connect with them on an emotional level that builds brand loyalty. So there's tons of insights here. You're going to want to listen to the whole shebang. I promise it will not disappoint. Without further ado, here's Scott Harkey.
Is going to require work and time and sweat and toil.
If money wasn't an issue, what would I be doing?
Don't worry about it. You'll figure it out.
Change is the only constant.
The Caderna Podcast.
Scott, welcome to the show.
Brian, thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, what what an intro. I like it.
Yeah, without a doubt. I know. I just wanted to highlight you, man. It seems like you've been doing some pretty big things.
Well, we've been working hard. So yeah, it's been a wild, fun ride. So yeah, no, thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, very cool. And so as I'm going through that, I mean, we talk about advertising agencies. I always think of that show, Mad Men. Is it like that anymore? Or is that just all about yesteryear?
You know, there's pieces. I love that show. I remember when it came out, and they did such a great job. And what's funny is my co-founder, we co-founded it together 14 years ago. He was my cousin, my second cousin, actually. And his dad was in the advertising agency business for 30 plus years. Okay. Back in the Mad Men day. And I used to have a desk in my office. It was from his dad's original agency in the 1960s. And it was actually like back in style again, because styles always come back. It was like this cool, mid-modern kind of desk. And the top of the desk had like cigarette burns on it. So yeah, I don't think we're having the martini lunches and smoking all day. But certainly I think we're coming back to campaigns that really, drive some sort of feeling again. I think for a while there was really about kind of hyper targeted, low funnel, digital stuff. And now as, media is really fragmented. I think the Mad Men era is definitely coming back, where you have to have some campaigns that really motivate and inspire people, kind of bring people together. It's not about this targeted campaign anymore. It's about a campaign that appeals to somebody at a really emotional level in a bunch of different demographics. I think that's what makes a great campaign. Like Airbnb has been famous for some of this work that they've done. Belong Anywhere was a consumer insight that they had in a campaign they developed that I thought really resonated with an 18-year-old and a 50-year-old, and different economic levels. So I think that's what we're seeing come back again in the business.
It's interesting. And one of the things I was thinking is like, we're just so inundated in today's society with information, advertisements. It's like you can't walk or turn on your phone or whatever without, just seeing so much right in your face. You mentioned that emotional attachment that you want your clients to have with their customer. How do you kind of cut through all the noise? Like how do you build a successful campaign today?
So there's been a ton of studies, Google, ANA, the 4As, the amount of commercialized messaging that your North American consumer sees it's insane. A few years ago, the number that I kept saying was the average consumer is seeing 5,000 ads a day. I think that number's gone up since then. We're just bombarded with logos, advertising, messaging on every platform. And so to really resonate a message with that kind of noise is nearly impossible. Some of the biggest, I think, mistakes I see marketers make all the time is they don't have the amount of frequency that it takes. I think Google was saying a few years ago that to really exist in a consumer's mind from a brand and advertising standpoint, you needed between 18 and 25 monthly impressions to really stand out in that noise. I tell people all the time that any sort of advertising campaign, typically you're buttering the toast too thin, and you're not really loading up with that frequency. Even if you have a great, really emotional, compelling message that really resonates with consumer trends. So yeah, it's really difficult right now, as you've seen, to really, exist, much less, get customers.
Yeah, I could imagine. Is that really I guess the results that your customers realize, is it really dictated by just money? When you think about buying clicks, pay per click and all these things that you see through SEO and, it seems like the algorithm's all geared towards you're essentially paying for these views. Is that true? Or do you think there's still a lot of, maybe creativity that can just kind of bypass all that?
Yeah. I mean, budget matters. And I think, the biggest, I keep saying the biggest mistake people make. I think with social media, like people think, oh, I have this free platform and, this is great. And I'm going to organically reach all these people and, people that, are part of my loyalty program are now going to see my messaging. And no, it's still pay to play. Facebook, Meta, and that's Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. All these people want you to pay to even reach your own existing audience. So, the thought of creating this great organic content is a fallacy. You need to build distribution channels that have eyeballs behind it and great content, whether they're even your owned people who follow you or new people. I truly believe that social media channels are some of the best ad platforms invented, and you need to apply budget and target audience for distribution along with great content. So, community management of your social channels where you're just creating organic content and thinking people are going to give a shit or actually see it is a huge fallacy. So yeah, it does take budget, but there is a lot of creativity available. That's why I think you've seen influencers be such a big deal over the past 5 years. And I also think that's why you've seen so many influencer-driven, celebrity-driven brands. They have an advantage because they have distribution. Meta doesn't want to pay for talent. They want free talent to have content delivered in their platforms. So that's why I think influencers and celebrities have had an advantage because they have distribution built in to their model. So if they're announcing or behind a brand, they can share it, and Facebook and Meta needs that content to be seen because it's interesting. And again, they're not paying people to develop shows. So you've seen a huge rise in influencer marketing. I'm a big believer in influencer marketing right now. It's hot for a reason. But yeah, most people, I think, forget that you have to pay for distribution. You can't just create content. The Field of Dreams strategy of, build it and they will come, that doesn't exist.
I feel like that could be kind of like I don't know how else to say it, almost like a kick in the nuts to like a small business owner or a startup that is saying, oh man, I think I got this great idea or this great product or service, and it sounds like we just got to dump a boatload of money in advertising to let the people know we're here. Any advice for maybe those folks that are starting out?
Yeah. So I like to think of a four-legged stool approach right now and I think we really are in a new world of business. I think your strategy and things you were doing even 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, are not relevant in the new world. And I think the four-legged stool approach that I've been counseling brands, and I talked about this actually recently, we just helped launch a brand for Devin Booker, Charles Barkley, and it's an enhanced water brand called Coco 5. And I applied the Four-Legged Stool to this approach. We just launched and it's had amazing success. I mean, we just outsold Vitamin Water in a major grocery chain recently.
Wow.
Our Amazon sales have been great. It's a fast growing brand. And it goes like this. Number one, you need a great product. You have to have an amazing product that's differentiated in the marketplace. That's number one. That's the first kind of leg of the stool. Second, you need relevance, whether that's you have a celebrity involved, you have an influencer involved, or you're just relevant in pop culture, whether you're Patagonia or whether you're a hot restaurant locally, or whether you have something that just leads its way to having some sort of relevance as a brand. And you can't buy it anymore. You can't just buy TV commercials like you used to. You have to be relevant. That's the second stool. The third one is you have to have a distribution channel. Whether you're a product and you have distribution in big box stores, or if you have a niche product and you're in gyms or whatever it is, you have to have distribution of either brick and mortar, or Amazon, or distribution of content, right? You have a show that's on, Netflix, or you have some sort of ways that people see your stuff. And distribution can be a number of different things. And the fourth thing, I think you have to have really good brand architecture and strategy and marketing execution from a strategy standpoint of how you're differentiated, how you'd be relevant in consumers' lives, and how it's positioned. And then you have to execute that marketing plan really well. And I think those are the brands that I've seen do really well in this new world, whether that's Smart Water with Jennifer Aniston, or whether that's Casamigos Tequila with George Clooney. If you look at the brands doing it really well right now, if you look at Tesla, SpaceX, name that brand, I see those four things in common of them doing those things right.
And that was great advice. I like, Scott, that kind of the four-legged stool. I think that simplifies things. Mm-hmm. But at the beginning, when I was talking about your intro, I mean, we're naming clients like Walt Disney and Nat Geo, and like you just said, this new venture with Charles Barkley, a lot of really established brands out there. You would think that they've got their own marketing arm, their own PR people. I guess they do. And then do they kind of like subcontract somebody like you to really kind of amp it up, or how does that work nowadays?
Yeah, we're in I think we're in the most collaborative environment I've ever seen, where in-house marketing departments are collaborating with agencies like mine. And I think that's given like little agencies like mine. I mean, we're an independently owned agency, which is rare for our size and the clients we work with. We're about 175 people. But I don't have shareholders. I don't have private equity. I've bootstrapped this company. And what I'm finding is, large or small marketing departments want to partner with independent or smaller agencies because it's a team effort. It's a collaboration, and it's bringing different skill sets to the table. Typically, we're probably most comfortable in the lane of strategy and really looking at consumer trends in a way that we can share those with brands, and making sure that their brand purpose aligns with what consumers want and how that kind of fits into the brand profile. And then where in the journey do they need to live with consumers, whether that's the awareness phase, whether it's the repeat purchase phase, whether it's the loyalty stage. So really looking at marketing strategy and tactics from a journey standpoint. But yeah, I mean, whether you're a brand that has one marketing person or 2,000, it doesn't matter. I still think collaborations are the name of the game. And whether you're collaborating with influencers or whether you're doing collaborations with other brands, and it can exist at all levels. If you're Vans and you're collaborating with, amazing skaters and artists and creating specific shoes that are really cool, that you're capitalizing on all the audiences of your collaborators, or you're a local IT or restaurant or hotel brand and you're collaborating with like your local influencers that have support, or you're collaborating with other local companies and doing things together to capitalize on your different owned channels and audiences. Or you're a local smaller company partnering with a smaller ad agency, and you're collaborating how you can delegate different roles and responsibilities for marketing. We're we're in a talent war right now. So there's not like amazing marketing people and designers and creatives just all over the place. So we need to, I believe, figure out a way to, work together to, maximize, what talent we have. So that's the way I see it. And it's what we've had to do with, our clients like Walt Disney Company with their marketing department. And it's even smaller companies that are, CEO led, less than, 25 million in sales, and they don't have any marketing department. So for me as an agency, we need to scale up or down either way, whether I have 25 people on a business or two, and whether it's a huge, large marketing department or no marketing department, like figuring a way to staff and scale and strategize that, I think is the new world.
That's pretty cool, because it seems like you, from day to day, you'd be working on just such different projects that have different demands. So keeps you on your toes.
Sure. Yeah, we have a golf brand that's completely new, that has some real, I think, interesting ways of using golf technology that hasn't been done. And then they're a scale up startup. They've got some seed money. They're doing well. It's not like a startup. And then we've got a Fortune 100 company. So that's that's a pretty wide range of scale. And I would counsel any company, even if you're below 50 million in sales. I think there are smaller ad agencies or boutiques or freelancers that you can utilize. And I think that old mantra of you have to have everything in house is really flawed right now when talent's so scarce. Even as an agency, I have 175 full-time people, but we have thousands of collaborators and freelancers that we hire out all the time, whether that's a business of 5 or 10 people, whether that's an agency of 100 people. I think finding scale and talent, like you have to be really creative right now. And I used to have that old school mentality, like I want everything in house and I want full-time people and dedicated people. And now it's like, no, I want the best person at this very specific skill, whether they work for me full-time or not. Like I need this done and I need it to be counted on to happen. And my clients are okay if I'm a general contractor finding other talent, whether it's my own full-time talent or other partnership talent.
And to that point, so you got a team of 175 full-time. Where do you find them? Like, what are you looking for? Are these people that majored in marketing at a great college, or are you stealing them from a company that you realize they really got innovative ideas, so you take that talent, or what are you doing?
So it's kind of interesting, and it's been a challenge. I'm not going to say I have it figured out because I've failed miserably in a number of ways. Professional services is a really difficult business, and advertising. As you can imagine, I have a lot of millennial kind of creative types who want to do great work and inspired more by the work and what we're up to as a company, what our clients are up to, than compensation. Although they want both, right? They want to be paid well for the great work that they do, and they want to be inspired, and they want a lot of diversity of work to keep their minds stimulated. So I've kind of come to the realization that I have actually two like benefits of workforce. I have senior marketing professionals that have been in the business, 10, 15, 20 years. They've worked at national agencies. They've worked on the brand side in-house at high level. And they love the business and they want to work in marketing and advertising. And my companies are just a platform for them to do great work for great clients. And I don't micromanage them. I stay out of their way. They can come into the office. They can work from home. They can do whatever the hell they want because they know that they're going to get the work done, and I trust them to get the work done. Then I have newer people in the business, call it less than 5 years, who it's our job to train them and to coach and mentor them to get better at the craft of marketing and advertising. Where I struggle is that mid-tier group because there's typically two tracks, and I've just had to accept this in my business. There's the track of someone who's going to be an agency lifer and loves working in agencies, and they want that diversity of work. Or there's other people that want to learn the craft of marketing and advertising and go capitalize on their skill set, whether it's their own agency or they're probably going to go in-house and make more money. I've probably started, more advertising agencies than anybody in Phoenix and Vegas, because we've trained people in the business, and they've gone off and done their own thing. And that should be celebrated. And I put probably more people in-house than you could imagine, right? They get the skill set, and then the in-house people, oh, you worked at that agency that does insane work? Like, we're going to hire you, and we're going to pay you 40% more money. And that's just the reality of the business. And I'm learning to just accept that that's part of the business, where we're going to train people and they're going to get better jobs and make more money than we can pay them at that mid-level scale. And my senior people are my diehards. And they've worked at other places, and they know what good culture looks like, and they know what good work balance looks like. And so they have that respect and appreciation for what our platform can provide them. So I don't have the answer. I think the mid-level piece to the business is really difficult. And that's where we struggle. But that's okay. I think we can now charge our clients more money for the senior leadership that they're going to get. And if there's some lower funnel work that needs to get done, production design, more, less strategic work, I have that workforce too. So it's just, I think I've been able to accept the cards that we're dealt and the industries that we serve in the industry that we're in, and just not try to like BS ourselves. Like, we need to be a certain way. Just accept that this is kind of part of the business, and celebrate when people leave for better opportunities.
Yeah. And I think that right there, is that's such a strength, because a lot of people, at least I found dealing with business, it's like you recruit somebody that, you're impressed by, you pour your heart and soul into building them up. And then all of a sudden you expect almost like a bit of ownership of them. Like they're an asset of your company that you can't ever let go. And that's hard. It's just natural to feel like, hey, where are you going? Like, where's the loyalty? But if you can celebrate that big jump that they have, it's kind of like that karma just floating around, I guess, that can always come back to you.
For sure. But you have to understand professional service businesses, right? It's law firms. Like let's look at law firms, accounting firms, and consulting firms in particular. The big four accounting firms, here's how it works. You go work there. You're a badass coming out of school. You're super smart, top of your class. You work in there, like you work 12 hours a day, and you're a workhorse for that professional. And they train you at an unreal level. If you're at Deloitte or Accenture, you're the type of training you're getting as a newbie, it's unreal. And you have two tracks, or you're a lawyer, right? And you're going to a big law firm, you're working like crazy. There's two tracks. You have the partner track, where you're going to be, a high level executive or partner or VP within that organization within 5 to 10 to 12 years. Or you're going to take that skill set and take it to another industry and get paid really well. But what the accounting firms and the consulting firms have learned is treat those people really well, celebrate them leaving. And then when they're a CFO at another company, they hire their old firm back, because they respect the training and the badasses that are over at that firm. So if you look at all the CFOs that have left the big four accounting firms, they hire their old accounting firm back, and there's alumni parties and all this stuff. I think advertising, we somehow think we're in a different industry or something. Like, no, we're in professional services. It works the same way as for consulting and accounting firms and lawyers. We sell time for hours. So I'm trying to like take a piece to that kind of book a little bit. And, when someone goes and starts their own agency, like, be super happy for them. Good. Like, you should be well liked as part of that labor workforce. Like, people should be like, what, they actually care about people, and they want the best for them, even if it's not as good for their business. Like, I think that will serve us in the long run.
Definitely. No, I think it's a great mentality. And segueing a little bit off of that, so I think one of the things that our listeners love to learn about is the actual people behind these companies. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got started and kind of built this little empire of advertising? Was it a dream? Did you want to go to school for marketing, or was it just kind of a happenstance thing that you and that partner you mentioned earlier kind of ended up together? How did we get started?
Yeah, no, great question. I've always loved marketing and advertising. I just thought the business was cool. Like, when TV commercials would come on, I'd want to watch them. And so I, in high school, I was in DECA, like the marketing club. And so I'm just passionate about the business. I mean, it's definitely not the business to get rich in. It's really difficult. The margins are small. I've had a lot of people in real estate and financial services, made a ton of money. But I've always loved the business. And so when I was in school, I loved it, and I actually got into it. But I started selling radio when I was like 20, and I learned pretty quickly in radio if I had some insight as to what audience my radio station could offer businesses and how we could create content, radio commercials at that time that appealed to that audience. I could help make that business money. And so that kind of like was a cool early case study when a lot of the other radio salespeople were just trying to sell time. And for whatever reason, I had this idea to create commercials that I knew would work in our stations. And I would go present that radio commercial like it was creative, and they would buy time on the station. I learned that creative could sell better than just, boring spots and dots, so to speak. And so then when I was working in radio, I ended up working for CBS, selling airtime. And I worked with a lot of agencies at that point, later in my radio career. And I saw how the agencies were doing business. And I was like, I want to be on the agency side. I think I can do it better. So long story short, I partnered with my second cousin who had a tiny little agency. And we had a little office in Scottsdale, not an office. We worked out of his condo in Scottsdale, off his kitchen table. He had 2 cats. We had no employees, and we were in a little condo, and we'd have to make excuses to go meet people for coffee because we were so embarrassed that we didn't have an office. And we just grinded it out. We pitched, a lot of business, and we lost almost all the big pitches we ever had. And I think, at least advertising, and probably most businesses, is not a game of how smart you are. It's just a game of how long can you stay at it. And I counsel people that have businesses, how long a runway do you have? Because it's not about having the greatest idea or being super smart. It's just like businesses don't fail. They just run out of money. And so for me, I found a way to do it for like 6 or 7 years. And that long runway created lift. And then that's when hockey stick could get going. The hardest thing is getting a big jumbo jet, off the runway. That takes years. And lucky enough for me, I was dumb enough and passionate enough about the business of marketing and advertising that like I knew I would succeed because I was if it took 10 years or 20 years, I was just going to stay at it. And then what happened about 10 years into the business, then all of a sudden liftoff, and then when liftoff happens, you go up in the air pretty quickly. And that's kind of when hockey stick happened for us. And we went from a nobody, even in our home, startup market of Phoenix, to the largest agency in the Southwest. I mean, it felt like people overnight were like, hey, what the hell happened? Like you guys just out of nowhere became the biggest agency in town. I mean, now we're the biggest agency in Phoenix by 3 times. And agencies have been in our market for, 50, 60 years. But, for 7 years, we had no clients. Like we were just scraping by with no money. Yeah. So I just believe in businesses. Like a lot of times people are like, hey, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to start this company. I'm like, no, you shouldn't do that. Start something on the side because it's going to take you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years to have any scale in the business.
And now when you had that liftoff, was it just all sort of medium-sized things started to come together at once? Or was there like an explosion, like that big client that said, hey, you're our guys? Like what was the tipping point?
It was an explosion. I think one year I think we pitched like 137 accounts and I lost like 125 of those pitches. But what I did is some of these state accounts or some of these federal government accounts that we would pitch from a marketing standpoint, one of the benefits to pitching accounts is you can request to see why you lost, and you can request to see the scorecards and the other competitors' proposals. So,
really? Yeah. Is that a government thing or that's?
Yeah, it's
Well,
a
yeah, I've
government
never
thing
heard
because
that.
because they have to be transparent, but as to why they selected the firm they selected. So I would see the judge panel scorecards, and then I would see all my competitors' proposals. And so that year, I learned how far I had to come to be more sophisticated as a marketer. I learned about what departments and what talent I needed to bring in to beef up our capabilities. And I learned what our competitors were strong at and what we were weak at. And so that year of failure, and it was insane failure. I mean, talk about pitching, spending thousands of hours up all night to pitch an account and lose is just devastating. It's horrible. To have that happen 100+ times in a year is like morally, like you're
You're a
smoked.
glutton for punishment. Yeah.
Oh, it's horrible. Like that's stupid. Like I would never do that today. My win rate, I pay very attention, what percentage of accounts we pitch that we win is a KPI I pay attention to really closely. But we learned so much that year, and it's fun to be like, oh, hey, we're doing great. We're great. But to really have that hard feedback of like, man, we're not even close. We have a long way to come in that realism to hit you and get you going. Fast forward that next year, I think it was 2 years after that, we won like the biggest accounts you could win. I mean, we won like a $60 million account, the Arizona lottery, which was a very historical, important account in Arizona. It was like a $15 million a year, a 5-year contract, and no one expected us to win. But I planned on pitching that 2 years ahead of time. We hired lottery consultants. We worked on that for literally 2 years before the pitch was even up. And we hit. And then right after that, we won Gila River Hotels and Casinos, this huge tribal casino account, which was like, $20 million a year. And then we won a big utility account, and that was all in like a year. So we grew like 300% in 1 year, which brings new challenges of staffing and things like that. But yeah, it was, we got really lucky in 1 year because for 7 years we got our ass kicked. That's to me how that hockey stick thing happened.
Sure. It's funny. It's like the same thing in building a financial planning business. Like a lot of people ask me now or newbies in the career, they're like, would you start all over and do this again? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know now.
Hell no. I would not start an agency from scratch again. It was 7 years of my life making no money and getting humiliated. I had to go to rehab after 7 years, like legit, like it crushed me. It was insane. So it's funny when you see people now, they're like, oh my gosh, like, how did you do that? Or, oh, you have a family business that you took over. Like, no. There was no family business we took over. We started it with no clients, 0 clients. And for 7 years, we made no money. So you had to live really lean. And most people don't want to do that. Most people are making 100 or 200 grand a year. They don't want to go to making 20 grand a year for 7 years to have the benefit of a business that could be worth millions. Like the risk reward and the trade-off isn't worth it.
Yeah. It's funny. I saw one of my buddies sent me a YouTube video. This guy, he's a skateboarder that does this like ridiculous trick where he goes like off a rail and then he like clears 20, steps and lands it like on the concrete as the board's flipping. There's a crazy move. And it was like, this is pretty cool. And then it says, but would you do this? And then it shows like 20 just complete wipeouts. And it's like, are you willing to go through all of that to get to that last accomplishment? Yep. And that's business. That's business right there.
Totally. And so again, for me, it's like, I love the business. Like I'm passionate about it. If this were any other business, there's no way we would make it. Because the trade-off, I'd be like, nah, I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, I'm stupid. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I want to break Wes Walker's bench press record. Here's a like smaller white guy, wide receiver. Like I'm a failed, wide receiver, in college. And I think he bench pressed like 24 times in the combine, 225. Yeah. I was like, I can break this. I can do this. And I think I got to like almost 10 times 225. And I'm like, nah, this trade-off of this goal is not worth it. It's silly. Like this, there's no reason to like try to accomplish this goal. I'm definitely not passionate about it. And I think That's what's
Yep.
fun about goals is like, what goal do you really want to have happen? And what's the trade-off for that goal?
Yep. And then reality pretty much tells you if you're ready for it or not.
Exactly. I was like,
Yep.
you know what? I'm good. This is a dumb, this is a dumb record, I'm
Yeah,
good.
exactly. And out of curiosity, as we're talking about the advertising and kind of how your business has grown, do you have a preference of working with, if we were to look at like three segments and we said you had the small business / startup, you have the government entity, like you mentioned, the lottery and stuff, or then you have like the giant, like Walt Disney or the NBA. Do you have one that you get more excited versus another, or?
I personally, I'm a sucker because I love taking something that has a lot of promise and making it bigger, and making more people attached to it. So there's a lot of scale ups that I love, like something like someone has a great idea, they have true differentiation in the marketplace, and they want to take that and go to the moon. Those are my favorite projects. So when you have a well-funded, probably Fortune 5,000 company that has the budget and the vision and the marketing sophistication to do that, I love that. So that's why, like we're working on a project with Wynn Resorts for a new Vegas show that's going to like blow people's minds, that I can't even talk about because I'm under crazy NDAs. That's the kind of stuff I really love. But if there's a small company that is well-funded, that has an insane idea that like they're going to go from like no one to like, like what's the next Uber? What's the next Airbnb? What's the next brand that's truly going to change somebody's life? And how do we put the marketing support together and the vision and the brand to do that? That's the work I love. Government's difficult because they're not entrepreneurs, but those accounts can pay the bills.
Yeah.
So I think it all depends. I think the hardest account, and my advice to anyone in the agency business, it takes as much time to handle a $1 million account a year as it does $100,000 a year account. So finding ways to have a strength or a niche to win bigger pieces of business, I think is smart. Whether that's industry expertise or whether that's a marketing function expertise, I think specialization for working with larger accounts that have bigger fees, that have more sophistication, because how you blow a lot of time is you're working with unsophisticated marketing people, and you have to tell them why you're doing something around marketing that most, sophisticated marketers already know. That's really frustrating. And there's a great saying, like, show me a good marketer, I'll show you a better niche marketer. I think that applies to business a lot, is, what's that niche you can, really exploit, and then you can broaden it out. People that try to go, I think, too broad too quickly in any industry, I think that's a tough putt.
Got it. And would you say that right now the number one tool is influencers? Like, is that kind of the first thing to try and say, we're going to get somebody that matches up with your message, and then we'll just blast it out to the world? Like, is that where your best return is?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the size of business, the type of business, I think the biggest opportunity is aligning existing people in your organization with a vision, and how that's going to change or inspire people or change people's lives. Like, if you don't have alignment with your existing company or team, how the hell are you going to take a message externally that's believable? I mean, how many times do you ask someone at any company, like, hey, what's your company up to? And they're like, oh, I don't know. They don't know your core values. They don't know your mission or your vision. And then you're going to like put some bullshit message externally out of like what your company stands for, and your internal people don't even know. So I think the lowest hanging fruit is getting alignment within an organization of like, why your company means something to people. Then you can externally have tactics. Then maybe finding an influencer that shares those values and is clear on those values and is excited about what you're doing to change the world and how that fits into their deal. That's the true, I think, magic that happens, is when you're inspiring people. I mean, just paying an influencer to put them on their channel is not going to work, because their followers are going to be like, this is bullshit. This is some paid ad, like screw this. And they're going to unfollow that person. And then, the message isn't going to be believable. But if you find, 20 micro influencers that love what you're doing because you're changing the community, you're changing the world, you're doing something amazing that they love, whether they're paid or not, that's the opportunity. But it takes that homework and alignment work first. And that's literally probably a big percentage of the work we do as an agency, where we come in and we help gain alignment with vision and mission. And then we can create external, internal, marketing collateral and media tactics to then expand upon that. But most people just want to go right away, like externally do messaging to publicize what they're doing. And that doesn't work because it's not believable, in my opinion.
Gotcha. I mean, is that something you ask like the company, like poll them, hey, who do you think out there in society today kind of best represents you? And then work off of that, like to kind of marry up that.
I mean, almost all new engagements, I require doing what I call a brand workshop. And we bring the core leaders of the company and and people in the company that are influential, and even sometimes customers. And, we're trying to get, 8 to 12 people, and we decide on what the company stands for, who the company is, how it's differentiated. And we go through this core kind of business exercise. And then our process is pretty simple. It's how does consumers' behavior and trends match up with what the company stands for, and how is it differentiated from their competitors? It's almost like these 3 circles, and what is in the middle. And that middle area is how we can develop a campaign for the company. And great campaigns are more than a headline or a tagline or a campaign. They turn into a company ethos. And if you can take a tagline or a headline that matches up with how you benefit the consumer, how it's differentiated from your competition, and how it's true to your company, and you can develop a company ethos around that, and that company ethos is bleeds into everything that company does, externally, internally, how it retains employees and attracts employees, how it changes the people that are aligned with that brand's life, and how it's differentiated than all the people in their space. That's where I think the real magic is done. And it's a simple process, and agencies, good ones have a similar kind of brand workshop process, but that's what we do. And then the work that we develop is launching off from a really healthy foundation. And then the execution and creative gets really fun and really creative, because you have this white space to create, because it's not about, is the ad blue? Is the logo red? What type of people are in the ad? Or, what are we doing on social media? Who are influenced? Our measurement for campaign and creative is this aligned with our company ethos? Is this aligned with what we talked about generally? And then the creative work gets way bigger and broader, and we're not in the little nitty gritty details of stupid shit of, how the ad looks or where the logo is. And we're thinking bigger, and we're thinking about how we're inspiring and attracting people. So that's our process. And I've seen a number of agencies do other processes. We've had an iteration of this process, but I've done thousands of these brand workshops, and I counsel every company, big or small, that a brand workshop's a way to get alignment, and it's a way to really kick off strategy for how you're going to develop successful campaign creative. And the best ones got milk, belong anywhere, just do it. These are not taglines, they're company ethos. It's how your whole company are banded together, internal employees, external clients or customers or users. And that's, I think, where great work happens.
That's awesome. I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun, where you're, not just kind of taking an order and fulfilling it. You're almost like business coaching and being so collaborative. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think so. Like, we have a campaign right now called You Do You, for a local casino group. And it's turned into a whole company ethos, for internal, like their internal, they have thousands of operators in their hotels and their restaurants. And You Do You could mean so many different things. And it's based on a consumer insight that we found, where people wanted to go to a place when they're, vacationing or they're at a casino, and they wanted to be themselves. And that consumer insight turned into a campaign. And now that campaign's turned into a whole company ethos. You do you means so much in that casino world for them. It's on everything. Everyone believes it. It's about customer service. It's about all this stuff, but it started from a consumer insight, and then they've built everything around that. And it's really become like their kind of thing. Like,
That's awesome.
It's cool. So I love that kind of stuff. When a consumer insight turns into a headline, the headline turns into a campaign, the campaign turns into like the soul of a company, and everything you do is based is judged based on that. And then I think big business growth can happen because there's just such alignment. It's so clear. It's emotionally driven. People don't make decisions, as we know, logically. They make them emotionally, right? In the back of our minds, in that limbic system, that's when we decide right away, are we going to be attracted to someone? Or are we going to buy this car? Or is this person going to be a friend of ours? It happens so quickly in the limbic system in the back of our mind. Then it shoots to the frontal cortex of our heads, right? Where we justify that emotional decision. And that's why there's a lot of bad advertising, marketing work out there. It's all based on logically driven reasons to believe and not emotionally reasons to believe.
Yep. Yeah. It's that rallying cry that, the whole team commits to. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And so a couple questions here for you, Scott, because I'm glad we really got into advertising, because it's something that everybody is exposed to marketing. Everybody wants to figure out that secret sauce. So that was pretty good. Now, for people out there that are listening that are thinking about launching their own company, starting something up, any general advice or kind of tips that you might share with them?
Absolutely. Number one, have a long runway. Put yourself in a position, to get through those long winters. That's the first thing I always coach. Have a foundation that is based on a consumer insight. So make sure the business is solving for something that is an insight amongst consumer behavior. I believe right now we're in a reset, and there's amazing opportunities to where people are looking for businesses to solve a problem that they have. And then make sure that's differentiated from your customers. So again, those 3 concentric circles, what do you provide as a brand? How are you different from your competitors? And how does that solve a consumer? How is that based in a consumer insight? And those 3 things in the middle is what is that one thing? So a lot of times, companies are if you look at car commercials is a great example. They have one thing that they market. They don't talk about the 30 reasons their car is better than the next car. They talk about one thing, like a safety or more room or stylish. The more things that you try to communicate to your benefits, your consumers, the likelihood of success go down tremendously, that each additional consumer benefit that you put in there. So again, this is coming from a marketing standpoint, but I think it also pertains to product development. So long runway, solving some sort of consumer need that's deep in consumer behavior. And there's so many tools you can find this from Facebook and Instagram Insights and Google Insights and Google Trends, and the internet has a wide variety of a lot of consumer insights now. I subscribe to hundreds of thousands of consumer insight services, things like Mintel. We're always looking for what's the latest consumer trend, whether it's they want to be more connected to people, but they have a higher need for travel, and when they travel, they want better customer service. What are these insights, and how's your business solving that need, and how is that differentiated from your competitors? And then how do you give yourself a long runway to succeed? Because I don't think the smartest win in today's market. I think the quickest to adapt win, right? Everything's now a digital campaign. It's testing and optimizing and changing directions quickly based on what consumers want.
Got it.
That was a long throw up of answers, but hopefully there's some smart thought in there somewhere.
No, there definitely was. I think that was insightful. And kind of in a similar vein, you mentioned consumer behavior. I know this is kind of a broad general question. Maybe we could find a narrow answer to, but excuse me, how would you say that consumer behavior is changing right now? Like, what does that future look like?
Oh man, great question. Let's see. I think the Edelman puts out a study. So Edelman's a PR agency, one of the largest PR agencies in the world. They put out a trust barometer. And what I've seen is the trust barometer for people is at an all-time low. People don't believe anything, right? The political environment, COVID, friends and family, like people just don't believe anything anymore, right? Like our trust in government, our trust in brands, our trust in people is low. I want to say it was like, I don't know, 20% or 12%. Like, I think the biggest thing now is people want to be able to trust other people, and they want to be able to trust brands. They want to be able to trust politicians. So if you have a company that is transparent and trustworthy, that's a big deal, because it's a scarcity resource right now. And the other interesting trend that I see is, I think I actually did an article about this, and I talked about Elon Musk buying Twitter, and I think currency is also, we don't trust currency, right? Like that's why Bitcoin and all these cryptos going up and NFTs, like no one trusts anything. And I had in my article, I said belief is the new currency. If you look at Elon Musk companies, none of them make any money, right? Tesla, SpaceX, but shareholders and consumers believe that he's really smart and his innovation is going to change the world. So my big consumer insight, I think that maybe that your audience can take away, is what is the reason to believe? People are looking to believe stuff, but they've been misguided. So what are companies doing that is helping solve a lack of belief in, I think, American consumers? And if you can be transparent and you can be a leader in a way that is so trusting, I think those are the type of brands people are going to want to align themselves with, because everyone's bought that product on Instagram that was from China or wherever that was like misrepresented. And we're looking for authentic representation because we want to believe in something, and there's just a lack of belief in the marketplace. And companies that have belief are trading at enormous value, and the sales and the revenue matter, but not like they used to. It's all about belief.
I think that's you could underscore that 1,000 times. That belief is the new currency. That's a great quote right there. So along those lines, and maybe we can kind of tie it all together with this, belief is the new currency. Where do you start with that? Because I mean, if you turn on the news, all you hear is this is the news you could trust, or the spin stops here. You get a politician and they're like, I just tell it the way that it is. And everybody out there is like, are you kidding me? Like, shut up. Like, how do you correct that?
So it's really interesting. I actually think it's counterintuitive. You correct it by, in my opinion, being extremely authentic and vulnerable. I think actually people are over polished. We used to have extremely polished movies and polished shows and polished advertising. And now people want real, because we're used to reality shows that aren't real. Like everything's fake, everything's manufactured. So when you go through these exercises, like these branding exercises, and you really try to understand who you are as a person or who you are as a company, I think you can find some authenticity. And authenticity and vulnerability requires actually being counterintuitive and letting people know how you failed or when you failed or that you fail. People want to hear that. People are looking. That's why if you look at the best influencers out there, they're authentic. They say they're flawed. They talk about their flaws. They're open with their flaws. It's completely counterintuitive to what we're made to believe, which is people want polish and perfection. No, people want real, like real. So I think that's actually the opportunity is being comfortable enough with yourself and your brand to where you can speak realness. That's why people like Elon. That's why people like Joe Rogan. Some people hate him too, but they're real. And so I think that's a real opportunity for companies and brands, is true realness and authenticity. And it's really hard to do. It's really, really hard to do. And if it's not done right, people are going to smell out bullshit and you're going to get canceled. And so I don't know, if I was a company, I would work really hard on that. And if you see the companies thriving, like Sarah Blankley, I love at Spanx, she's freaking real. And people know she's real. And that's why one of the big reasons I think she's been successful. And she talks about how she's failed thousands of times. And people can relate to that. And we as human beings relate to other people. And if they put their flaws out there, it inspires us because we know they're being truthful. I think that's what I believe. And this is maybe a segue. So I actually do have a book coming out. It's called Resets. And that's what I'm trying to talk about. That's what I'm trying to lean into. And I have all these examples of brands that were real and they had enormous success after that. I think that's one of the reasons we've had some success, is because I've failed like crazy. Like I went to rehab, like I've been divorced. Like I've had all these crazy failures. And then I started looking at all the greatest marketing campaigns, and they all were based on the same human truth of realness and failure. Like if you look at Avis, they didn't say they were the best. They said, we try harder, right? If you look at some of the other brands that really screwed up, like KFC had a campaign and it was like FCK, like we screwed up, we're sorry, right? And people loved it. It worked really well. So I think that's the opportunity, is kind of to embrace this new world where people are looking for real, authentic leadership and not bullshit. They've had enough of it. Yeah. They don't believe it anymore.
Yeah. And I guess it's human nature, to try and give that second chance and hope for that comeback story of sorts. So
of course. Yeah. The underdog
story.
Yeah. I mean, same thing happens too with, if you look at big scandals, the big scandals that have popped up, the people that have like owned it and stood up and be like, I screwed up. I'm owning this, my bad. And great PR professionals that help them through that the right way, they bounce back. The other people that hide and try to manipulate it and try to look good, they're toast. So I think there's real opportunity around the realness. I think if you were a company and you were transparent, like, hey, here are the 10 things we've been screwing up the last 10 years, and here's how we're trying to fix it. I think people would be like, holy shit, this IT company that I've had is amazing. This hotel company that talked about the ways that they weren't serving their customers right now, how they want to change. I like these people. These people like get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. This has been great, Scott. I think there's just so much here that everyone's going to have some takeaways. So one of the favorite parts I hear from my listeners is often we'll conclude with a guest with the lightning round, where I'll just fire off some questions, get to know you, as a person, what kind of makes you tick. And so if you're cool with that, we'll get started, and then you just tell me the first thing that comes to mind.
Love it. Let's do it.
All righty. So favorite movie?
Last of the Mohicans.
Okay.
Oh, came to mind.
Favorite book?
Favorite book. Oh man, I have so many favorite books. The Four Agreements.
The Four Agreements. I have not read that one.
Oh my! Do yourself one favor. Everybody, go get this book. It is the single greatest book that anyone could read. It's Four Agreements to Life. And that book changed my life. And anyone I've given that book to, it has literally changed their life. It's awesome. And it's a short read, super deep, but that book will change some people's lives. I promise that.
I will definitely check it out. And when you were growing up, did you have a childhood hero? And if so, who was that?
I'm such a big sports fan. Would have been my childhood hero. Oh, Pat Tillman.
Pat Tillman, yeah, that's awesome.
Played at Arizona State University, obviously Cardinals. I'm an Arizona guy, so yeah, Pat Tillman. I'm looking at his jersey in my office right now.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah,
that's what a story.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Favorite vacation you had or destination that you've been to?
Hawaii. I'm a surfer. Hawaii is just, I can unplug there. I can like recharge, or something about it that just like recharges you. And I'm a surfer, so just being in the warm water with great waves and Hawaii. There's a reason why Hawaii's freaking an amazing place.
Yep, I agree. Did my honeymoon there, and I would say Kauai in particular is just
yes, Kauai and the North Shore of Kauai in Hanalei Bay and Princeville are, and the Napali coast of Kauai. Yep. There's not a place like that in the world, I believe.
I agree. And so you're a busy guy. How much do you sleep at night?
So I'm a crazy sleep person. I'm like, my buddy has all these like insights to sleep, and he like wears this like band, and then he like tests all these different supplements and does this. And like, he's a nut. He's a totally type A nut, and I'm not. So I just listen to all his insights to getting great REM sleep. And I don't do it like with the insights he does, but I just do what he does to try to get great sleep. So yeah, I like to get, between 6 to 7 hours of really good REM sleep. I actually have this thing called the Ooler. It's a bed cooler, like an air conditioning underneath your bed. And if you sleep cool at night, he was telling me you get like 30% more REM sleep a night. And so like, I'm like a nut about this stupid like air conditioning under your mattress. Like it's a weird thing, but yeah.
Might have to check that out too.
Yeah. Okay. Ooler. Yeah. Check out the Ooler.
Got it. And do you have a quote that you live by?
So many good quotes. Damn, these are good questions. There's a really long thing I have in my office called "The Man in the Arena," and it's by, who is it by? It's so good. It's by Theodore Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt, right?
Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah. Man in the Arena, and it's just about like basically, here's to like people getting their ass kicked and getting back up again and keep going. That's what it's about. And for those like sitting on the side and making fun of the person in the arena in their blood and sweat, like, screw you guys. Like, here's to the people, the men and women who are like doing it,
giving it all. And
trying their ass off like that. I love that shit.
That's awesome. And then last two questions here, because this is a bit of a finance show. That's my background. Yeah. Is there something that you could qualify as your best investment that you've made? Could be financial or otherwise.
Yeah. The best investment I've made is investing in myself. It's going to therapy. It's going to business performance coaches. It's the learning that I've done on my own time. It's the conferences that I've gone to. It's the 12-step meetings that I've gone to. It's the meditation. It's the physical workouts that I've done. Like the best investment you can make, and I forget who said it. I think it was Warren Buffett or someone, like the best investment you can make is investing in yourself.
Okay. And on the flip side, any worst investment that you could point to?
Oh man. The worst investments I've made is spending time or having business partners or people in my life that didn't align with my energy or my values.
Yep. No, that's a good point. I think that's a tough one I would agree with for any business owner. Is it's like it feels weird and hard to cut people loose, but if they're not getting you one step closer to your goal, then they're taking you away from it. Yeah. Yeah.
And one of my mentors, he was always like, I used to always invest in deals. Now I invest in people. Like I could see the best business deal and it makes all the sense in the world. And it wasn't the right person and wasn't the right energy person. And they've always failed, always. And then there'll be someone who has an okay business idea, but the person I knew would make it work because they were just an incredible person. Those almost always work. So like just the right people, like how important like the right people are, more so than an idea. I think that anytime I've had a great idea or a great business plan, it's just like a person I was like, oh, is this person kind of scummy or is this person like, whatever, like, and if it even pops up, like, I still have to like, my girlfriend too, it helps me like, is that the right person, you really want to be in business with? And you're like, you know what, probably not. And making that, decision, even though the deal can look so juicy at times, to like be true to that. I've made some really bad investments in that arena.
It's tough. And you kind of only learn by experience, with some of these things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Scott, this was awesome. I mean, it was a blast talking to you. I think there's so much here for people to take away. Anything that you wanted to close with, whether it's something you got coming up in the future or anything you want to share with everyone?
Man, I don't have much yet. Just thanks for having me on. Thanks for what you're doing with the podcast. I love people out there doing these. The format of just having a cool conversation inspires me. So thanks for thinking of me to even have me on. And hopefully there was at least some insights that someone could take somewhere, even if it was one.
I'm sure.
Hour. So just thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. And maybe we'll close with, I know you said you have a book coming out called Resets. So what's the target for that? When can people expect that?
That should be coming out in the next 2 or 3 months. It's something I've been working on for 5 years. So I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. It was supposed to be a marketing book because I'm such a brilliant marketer. I thought I'd write a marketing book and everyone think I'm really great. And, all these big companies would hire us to be their agency because I'm a genius. And as I got into the book, I realized what a mess I was and what a failure I have been at so many times in my life. And those were the insights that I thought people could use and I could help people with. And I thought they were really unconventional. Maybe there's a lot of people out there that don't feel like they're that smart, didn't go to Ivy League. I didn't even graduate college, barely graduated high school. So I think the insights in this book that came out, are really cool and really different. And I guess that's the book I'm supposed to write. So excited for it to finally come out. Anyone that knows doing a podcast or writing a book is insane. It is so much time, so much work, so much money. It definitely doesn't make sense because the trade-off of time versus reward is it's insane. But so I'm excited about it. And hopefully it can help some people. I know the insights really helped me as even I look back about some really unconventional things and how it ties to, I think our own journey is so connected, and our own journey, our own relationships are so connected to business that I don't think they should be separated. I think our own personal failures and finding out who we are it relates to our business. Mm-hmm. And this is the year of the personal brand. Personal brands do really well, whether you like it or not. Your personal brand's tied to the business at some level and your personal values. And so I think marketing and business and professional development are all one big thing.
Sure.
So that's kind of the book. It's just a hodgepodge of all of that. And it's more written in an insight form. And it has a lot of personal and vulnerable failures that I've encountered. So anyone else who's crashed and burned multiple times, maybe it'll make you feel better.
Yeah. And we're all out there. So I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate that. And that'll be exciting to check out. The book Resets coming out soon. So everyone, thank you for tuning in today. We've heard from Scott Harkey, the president of OH Partners and author of the upcoming book Resets. Be sure to check that out. And thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the episode. I'm your host, Brian Caderna. You've just listened to the Caderna podcast. Be sure to go spread the good word with all your friends and family out there. Leave us a review, and we will catch you next time. This podcast is intended for the general public and for informational purposes only. The show does not provide any recommendations or investment advice regarding any specific account type, service, strategy, or product, or to otherwise act in any fiduciary or other capacity. Please contact a financial professional for guidance and information that is specific to your situation. Brian Caderna does not provide tax or legal advice. Please contact your accountant or legal advisor to discuss your situation. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated with or endorsed by Park Avenue Securities, Guardian, or Caderna Financial Team, and opinions stated are their own. All investments contain risk and may lose value. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. References to specific securities, asset classes, and financial markets are for illustrative purposes only and do not constitute a solicitation, offer, or recommendation to purchase or sell a security. Brian Caderna is a registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, PAS. OSJ 300 Broadacres Drive, Suite 175, Bloomfield, New Jersey, 07003. Phone number 973-244-4420. Securities products and advisory services offered through PAS, member FINRA SIPC. Financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. PAS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Caderna Financial Team is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. California Insurance License Number 0K04194.